What's up everybody, Nate here, and a question that I see floating around online all the time is how exactly should you prepare for your financial future? And the reason that I continue to see this time and time again is that millennials and Gen Z are constantly saying that they're not going to have enough money to save up for retirement and that the money that they're making from their job right now isn't going to be enough, so they shouldn't even plan ahead for their financial future. And of course, different generations have prepared for retirement and their financial future very differently. And depending on which generation you grew up in, that is going to have a massive impact on how you handle your money and what you do with it tomorrow. Now, being a millennial, I really wasn't taught much about finances at all, other than just to save your money and work hard, right? And I feel like a lot of people are still growing up being taught that today. But let's get one thing straight. Depending on what you want to actually do in the future, that is going to determine what your future goals are with your money and how you want to spend your money today. Nowadays, planning for retirement and planning for your financial future has been made really easy by something called a 401k plan. Now, a 401k plan basically just refers to a part in the tax code that allows you to kind of work with your employer to save for retirement and to put money away for the future. This is what the majority of people do with their money as they get older and they start getting jobs that offer a 401k plan. They essentially get a paycheck at their job, and their job actually takes a small amount of their paycheck and invests it into a 401k plan on their behalf. Now, of course, when you get hired in at a company, you're going to have a little bit of leeway on what you actually are investing in your 401k plan. But the idea here is that you are going to work at your job and your money is automatically invested before it actually even reaches your bank account. Most employers are going to match your contributions up to around 1 to maybe 5%. So for instance, if you decide to put, say, 3% into your 401k plan from your paycheck, that means your employer is going to match that 3%. So say that 3% was $300, then they are going to match that at $300 as well. So you are going to be investing in your 401k plan $600 every single week. Now, this is what the majority of people do with their money because it's very easy. I mean, it doesn't really take much thought. You basically get hired in at a company, you look at the 401k plans, and you just start putting your money aside. All of those 401k plans are managed by an asset manager. So they make all of the decisions within the funds themselves, but you are the one contributing the money at the end of the day. And it's kind of just set it and forget it, right? You don't actually have to move the money around yourself. It comes out of your paycheck, goes into this 401k sponsored plan from your employer, and that's pretty much it. 401k plan exists in the first place because it kind of takes a lot of the pressure off of employers that they used to have 20, 30, and even 40 and 50 years ago. A lot of you are probably screaming at this video right now thinking, well, what about pensions? Pensions existed, like I said, about 50 or so years ago as a way for your employer to save for retirement on your behalf. Pensions worked in a very similar way, right? So you would essentially go to work, get a paycheck, and a percentage of that paycheck would go towards the pension plan. The difference was everybody was kind of paying into this pension plan at that specific company. The longer you worked at the company, the more you got invested, and this was essentially a way for companies to hold on to people for the long haul. You would essentially be putting all of this money in, and if you left that company much earlier, then you wouldn't have access to that pension. So if you did a really good job and you contributed for a very long time, you had a huge pension plan built up, and oftentimes all of that money was well enough for you to live off of by the time you retire and for many, many years after. This was a pretty sick deal for employees, but companies started to figure out years and years later that this plan was just not working for them and employees anymore. People started to live a whole lot longer, so that meant that we had to have bigger and better funded pension plans for all of these different companies. Not only that, but things like inflation, especially like in the 1970s and 1980s, really started to eat away at those pension plans. So now you had millions of Americans who worked really hard at their jobs, saved all of this money, but they had higher costs because inflation was eating away at the value of those pension checks. ETFs. So they weren't getting all of that money back anymore, and all of this, remember, was decided by the employer years and years ago. Not to mention, these pension plans were very, very expensive, and this cut into the profits and the potential growth margins for a lot of businesses. So they were paying out all of these pensions and they weren't really getting much in return. That's when a lot of companies started to switch over to the 401k plan idea. So now people would be directly investing in the stock market through their company. They would be putting their money in a series of different funds, and those funds would be managed by an asset manager. And that meant that those funds could continue to see growth over time, and the people who are putting their money in the 401k plan, well, they may actually start getting higher and bigger returns because the stock market traditionally always goes up over time. Not only that, but the 401k plan can go from employer to employer. So if you actually want to quit your job after 5 years, you can take that 401k money and you can roll it into another 401k plan or somewhere else, or you can just take it out in general, whatever you want to do with it at that point. But you don't have to keep it with the employer. It's not like that money immediately disappears. It did with a pension plan. But the big question that you're probably wondering is, well, we had pensions, now we have 401ks, but are 401ks a really good idea in this economy? And are they going to be the best plan for my financial future? Well, 401ks have a lot of pros and they have a lot of cons. One of the biggest benefits of a 401k is that all of the money that you contribute is tax-free. So this is money that you're actually putting in before you actually get your paycheck, which means it hasn't been taxed yet. So you're having bigger contributions to your retirement and financial future, and that money cannot be taxed until you start to pull it out of that plan, which is at 59.5. Like I said before, 401ks can move around with you, so they offer that flexibility. You don't have to stay at a company for 10, 20, and 30 years just for the benefits of that 401k. If you want to take that 401k money or that plan and roll it over into a new one, you can do that. But if you don't have the right financial goals with a 401k plan, then they might end up costing you in the long term. For instance, while you may go up front not paying any taxes, well, eventually you are going to have to pay taxes on that money. And the fact of the matter is we don't know what taxes are going to look like years and years down the road. The other big con, you can only start pulling your money out after 59.5 years old. So that means if you are, say, 25 and you're contributing to a 401k plan right now, it is pretty much locked there for your financial future. If you go to pull it out, there is a ton of penalties because remember, that money went in tax-free. So now if you pull it out before, then you technically have to start paying taxes on it and fees, and the fees are going to vary depending on the 401k plan. The taxes part is the most unsettling thing to me because today we can literally calculate what the taxes are going to be. You can go to an accountant and they can tell you exactly how much you're going to owe if you take money out of that 401k plan. But 40 and 50 years from now, depending on how old you are, well, we don't know what the tax code is going to look like in the future. It could be a whole lot more aggressive. Chances are it's going to be because over time, taxes have only gone up. I mean, there's periods where they've gone down for certain people, but for the most part, taxes only go up because the government always needs more money, which means you might contribute $1 million to your 401k plan, but you might end up losing 10, 20, and 30% of it over time to taxes. And that is a big problem. Now, like I stressed at the beginning of this video, everybody's financial future is going to look very much different. If you want to use a 401k plan for retirement and retirement only, then it's a pretty decent option. If you're somebody that wants to use their money today and invest in something that is going to allow you to use money in your short-term financial future and not just 40 years from now, then a 401k traps your money and it gets eaten away by inflation and taxes over time. I mean, you might start pulling money out when you're 60 or 65 years old, and that money might get taxed at 20% immediately. And then on top of that, the value of your dollars might be a whole lot lower because of inflation. So now you are losing a ton of money after working for a very, very long time. In addition, some people might want to retire when they're 30, or they might want to retire when they're 40. This is a movement called the FIRE movement, financially independent, retired early, and a 401k plan might not be the best way to go if that's your financial goal. And that is just assuming that nothing happens in your future. So if you do turn 60 and you have a fixed income, well, now you're going to have to be pulling out a certain amount of that money every single year from your 401k. But what if you have an emergency that pops up? Or what if you have a lot of medical bills that you now have to pay for? That is all going to eat into your 401k savings, and you might have a lot less than you think. People that actually found this tax code, the people that actually created the 401k plan, have come out and said the 401k was never meant to be your sole retirement vehicle. It is supposed to help and contribute to your retirement savings and your long-term financial goals, but it is not meant to be your sole retirement savings device. People contribute all of this money to their 401k, but there are all of these other things in our economy that may end up eating away at that value of the 401k over time, which means people rely on this 401k plan. They get to retirement and they realize they don't have enough in order to retire for 10 or 15 years. So you work 30, 40, and 50 years of your life only to enjoy about 15. Obviously, if you are somebody right now watching this video thinking, well, I have a 401k plan, so am I just screwed with my money? Well, that is not the point. The point is for you to kind of look for alternatives, and the point of the entire 401k plan movement is to put finances back in your hands. When you invest in a 401k, you're essentially investing in the stock market or stock market funds like an index fund or an ETF. That gives you exposure to the stock market and a lot of other assets, which is a whole lot different from a pension plan. This gives employees or just regular Americans the ability to kind of choose what they want to invest in, and that is a good thing. 401k plans aren't evil, and they can definitely help you out. And if you have one, well, then that is totally fine. Don't get rid of it and don't go transfer that money, because there's a lot of fees for that too. But what I'm saying here is that you need other options. You have to look into other things like an IRA or just investing in the stock market in general. These are going to be ways for you to reduce your taxes and give you the ability to pull out that money when you need it. So if you need it 5 years down the road, it's not locked in a 401k account. It's locked in your own investment account, which means you can do whatever you want with it, and there is a lot lower taxes and a lot lower fees. Like I said before, millions of Americans utilize a 401k plan because it is very easy, but just because it is easy doesn't mean it is the best option for your long-term goals. So definitely think about what you want in the future. Definitely think about how you want to spend your money and when you want to spend it, and that will help you determine if a 401k plan really is the right money move for you. But that is it for today's business and financial news breakdown. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to stay up to date with all the top business and financial news from around the country, our team puts together a free daily newsletter, and you can subscribe to it by clicking the link in this corner right here. And if you want to stay up to date with me and everything else happening in the business and financial world, I'm putting out updates 7 days a week over here on this channel, and I've actually got another one ready for you right here, so be sure to check that out before you go. That is it for me, everybody. Be kind out there, and I'll see you all in the next one.